I still can't believe it happened. I wake up every day hoping it was just a nightmare, but it wasn't. My daughter, Emily, vanished without a trace, and I'm left with nothing but questions and haunting memories. This is my story. I'm not a writer, but I need to get this out. Maybe it'll help someone understand or even bring me some peace. It all started last summer. My wife, Sarah, and I decided to take Emily on a family vacation. We wanted to get away from the hustle and bustle of the city, so we rented a remote cabin in the woods. It seemed perfect, quiet, serene, and a chance to bond as a family. Emily, who was 7, was thrilled. She loved exploring new places and had a fascination with nature. The cabin was about an hour's drive from the nearest town, surrounded by dense forest. It had a rustic charm, with a small porch overlooking a tranquil lake. For the first few days, everything was perfect. We hiked, fished, and roasted marshmallows by the campfire. Emily was in her element, running around the woods and collecting pine cones. Then came the 5th day. It was a warm evening, and Emily was playing outside while Sarah and I were preparing dinner. I remember hearing her giggles echoing through the trees. It was such a comforting sound. But then, suddenly, it stopped. I didn't think much of it at first. Maybe she found something interesting and was quietly examining it. After a few minutes, I called out to her, but there was no response. I walked out to where she had been playing, but she was nowhere to be found. Panic started to set in as I searched the immediate area. Sarah joined me, and we called her name over and over, our voices growing more frantic with each passing second. We searched for hours, combing through the woods and shouting her name until our throats were raw. As night fell, we called the local authorities. A search party was quickly assembled, and they scoured the forest with flashlights and dogs. But Emily was gone. Just like that. The following days were a blur of despair and exhaustion. More volunteers joined the search, but there was no sign of Emily. It was as if she had vanished into thin air. The police questioned us extensively, but there were no leads, no clues. They eventually concluded that she must have wandered off and gotten lost, but I knew my daughter. She wouldn't have gone far on her own. Weeks passed, and the search was scaled back. Sarah and I were devastated. Our once happy family was shattered, and the cabin that had seemed so perfect now felt like a prison of memories. We returned home, but life was never the same. Emily's room remained untouched, a painful reminder of our loss. Then, about a month after Emily's disappearance, something strange happened. I was sitting on the porch late one night, unable to sleep. The woods were eerily quiet, the only sound the occasional rustle of leaves. I was lost in my thoughts when I heard it, a faint, distant voice. It was so soft that at first, I thought I was imagining it. But then I heard it again, clearer this time. Daddy. My heart nearly stopped. It was Emily's voice, calling from the forest. I stood up, my body trembling with a mix of fear and hope. I grabbed a flashlight and headed into the woods, following the sound. Emily? I called out, my voice breaking. Daddy, help me. I pushed through the underbrush, the beam of my flashlight cutting through the darkness. The voice led me deeper and deeper into the forest, farther than we had ever ventured before. Finally, I came to a clearing, and there it was, an old, abandoned cabin. It looked like it hadn't been used in decades, the wood rotting and the windows broken. I hesitated for a moment, then walked up to the door. It creaked open, revealing a dark interior. The air was thick with dust and decay. I shone my flashlight around the room, and that's when I saw them, drawings on the walls, done in a child's hand. My heart raced as I recognized Emily's style. She loved to draw, and these were unmistakably hers. There were pictures of trees, animals, and a shadowy figure. In the corner of the room, I saw something that made my blood run cold. Emily's favorite toy, a stuffed bunny. It was dirty and worn, but I would recognize it anywhere. I picked it up, my hands shaking. Emily? I called out again, my voice echoing in the empty cabin. There was no response, only silence. I searched the cabin, but there was no sign of her. It was as if she had been there, but had vanished once more. I was about to leave when I noticed something strange. A door in the floor, partially hidden by debris. I cleared away the rubble and opened it, revealing a dark, narrow staircase leading down into the earth. My flashlight flickered as I descended the stairs, the air growing colder and more oppressive with each step. At the bottom, I found a small, dank room. The walls were covered in more drawings, and in the center of the room was a large, crude symbol drawn on the floor. It looked like some kind of ritualistic marking. I felt a chill run down my spine. What was this place? And what had happened to my daughter? I searched the room, but there was nothing else. No sign of Emily, no clues. Just that symbol and the drawings. I left the cabin, my mind racing. I didn't know what to think. Had Emily been taken by someone? Was she still out there somewhere? I returned home and told Sarah what I had found. She was as confused and terrified as I was. We contacted the police, but they found no evidence of anyone else in the area. The cabin was old and abandoned, and there was no sign of recent activity. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something sinister was at play. I began researching the area, looking into its history. I found stories of strange occurrences in the woods, disappearances, unexplained phenomena. Some of the locals believed the forest was haunted, a place where dark forces dwelled. I didn't want to believe it, but the evidence was mounting. I continued to hear Emily's voice at night, always leading me back to that cabin. Each time, I found more drawings, more signs that she had been there. But she was never there when I arrived, always just out of reach. My obsession with finding Emily consumed me. I stopped going to work, stopped eating, stopped sleeping. I spent all my time in the woods, searching for any sign of her. Sarah tried to support me, but she was struggling too. Our marriage was falling apart, and I could see the fear in her eyes whenever she looked at me. One night, I heard Emily's voice again, clearer and closer than ever before. I grabbed my flashlight and ran into the woods, following the sound. It led me back to the cabin, but this time, there was something different. The air was charged with electricity, and I felt a sense of dread like never before. I entered the cabin and descended the stairs to the basement. The symbol on the floor seemed to glow with an eerie light. I called out to Emily, my voice trembling. "Emily, where are you?" And then, I saw her. She was standing in the corner of the room, her eyes wide with fear. "Daddy, help me," she whispered. I ran to her, but as I reached out, she vanished. The room grew colder, and I felt a presence behind me. I turned around, and there it was, the shadowy figure from Emily's drawings. It was tall and menacing, its eyes glowing with a malevolent light. I backed away, my heart pounding in my chest. The figure moved towards me, and I felt an overwhelming sense of dread. It reached out a hand, and I felt a searing pain in my chest. I fell to the ground, gasping for breath. When I woke up, I was outside the cabin, the sun rising over the trees. I was disoriented and weak, but I knew I had to get back to Sarah. I stumbled through the forest, eventually finding my way home. Sarah was frantic when she saw me, but I couldn't explain what had happened. All I knew was that the forest was hiding something dark and sinister, and it had taken my daughter. I contacted the police again, but they dismissed my story as the ramblings of a grief-stricken father. Months have passed since that night, and Emily is still missing. The cabin haunts my dreams, and I can't shake the feeling that she's still out there, trapped in some otherworldly realm. I continue to search, but my hope is fading. I'm sharing my story in the hope that someone out there will understand, that someone will believe me. I need to find my daughter, and I need to uncover the truth about what happened in those woods. Until then, I'll keep searching, driven by the faint echo of Emily's voice calling me from the darkness.